So welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Karen, for having me. It's a delight to be with you.
You know, Matt, it's not it's I can't even express how much of a deep honor it is to have you, because this we're going to be talking about human trafficking, and it is such a, oh God, it's a gut-wrenching topic. And um well, it's actually my honor to give you a platform to talk about it, and hopefully it just changes one person's life. So thank you.
Absolutely. It is a heavy topic, right? And nobody really wants to talk about heavy topics.
Yeah.
But for those of us who want to see the world change into something else,
Yeah.
we have to have that courage to have the hard conversations.
Yeah. We do. I have this saying, you can't get to the the beautiful field until you work your way through the blackberry forest, and get banged up and dinged up by all the blackberries, because life, no rain, no rainbow. You can't have a brighter future without, without tackling some shit. You really can't.
I totally agree.
You know, Matt, I'm just going to share my naivety for a second. I knew that human trafficking happened, but um, I don't know. I had a very naive view that it only happened in maybe poor countries, where people were selling their kids, to try and make money because they were desperate. And I know that's naive, but that's sort of where I was sitting. And I remember in 2000, I think it was 2019, I went to Detroit, but then I went down to Atlanta. And as I got on the train at the Atlanta airport, to go to another terminal, this announcement came over saying about human trafficking, and like, report anybody that you see. And I'm like, what am I hearing? Am I actually hearing this on a train? And then I admit it, I started looking at everyone going, are you a human trafficker? And then I started getting really like tense and guarded. And then the guy who picked me up, who lives in Atlanta, I said, what the hell is that? And he said, yeah, Atlanta's one of the biggest hubs in the world. And I'm like, I my brain, so my brain was shocked. So perhaps today we're going to maybe even shock other people, and I hope we do, because until we know what we don't know, we can't actually change anything. So there.
Yeah, Karen, you're not alone. You're not alone in that. Human trafficking is this abstract concept, I think, for so many of us, especially those of us who feel a sense of safety.
Mm,
But the truth is, the world has changed for children.
yeah.
The world has changed for adults as well. Those of us globally looking for employment create these vulnerabilities we don't even recognize. We don't
Mm,
ask ourselves, is that job actually legitimate? We just are
yeah.
excited we got the job offer. Or
Yeah.
we get these text messages nowadays promising riches or cryptocurrency investments. Most of us don't realize those are scams, oftentimes perpetrated by victims of human trafficking, forced to send those
Oh
texts. It is
God.
so complicated. And so you're not alone, Karen. And I hope I can clear some of this up today for you.
But it is nice to live in a bit of a naive world. I have to admit, sometimes it's good to have that, the blinkers on, but we shouldn't. Like, we should, what? It's a tough balance, isn't it, Matt? Actually knowing what exists and understanding it,
Hmm.
accepting it, not accepting it, but accepting that it's there. Definitely not accepting that it's happening, but then also find that balance of, well, I can't let it control me. And is there something I can do? And that's a tough little scenario to work your way through, because we all live in fear. When something is so big and so unknown, it's a fearful state that we get ourselves into. And yeah, well, let's talk about you. So my understanding of you, and I've done some reading, but Matt, it blows my mind because you're sort of like all over the place. I do want to get into the technology side, because that's your bee's knees, really. But you started. So tell us about, like, go back, because you started off in an orphanage with your wife in Thailand. Is that what? Tell us about that, and is that what got you into this whole world?
Yeah, that's correct. My wife and I have always had a heart for the global poor.
Yeah.
And I had an opportunity to move to northern Thailand to run a children's home. And in the process of moving my family to Asia and serving at this children's home, I started to investigate a little bit what were the vulnerabilities of the children in my care. I had 48 young women, ages 8 to 18, that my wife and I were caring for, and we had a Thai staff that was helping us do that. And we were taking them to school, but most of these children were from the impoverished regions, northern Thailand, Myanmar border area.
Yep. Yep.
And so they were minority groups. Think Hmong, Aka. These are villagers that come from a minority group, and they're oftentimes quite vulnerable, quite poor. Kind of back to that original thought you had that human trafficking is kind of
Mm.
maybe targeting some of those populations, and human trafficking does. But in the process of caring for these children, I traveled to the border of Myanmar and interviewed the village leaders where these children came from. And these children in our care, they sometimes were true orphans, or perhaps they had one parent who had died or had left, and that family could no longer care for that
Mm.
child. And so they would come to the children's home that we were running. And in the process of just kind of trying to understand what was happening in the villages and why these villages could not care for their own and were seeking outside help, it really became clear that human trafficking was taking place. Men from larger cities like Bangkok or Chiang Mai or beyond would drive to these villages and offer jobs, but only to the pretty girls. And these job promises sounded legitimate,
Mm.
right? Come to Bangkok and work in a restaurant or work at a
Yeah.
hotel, and you'll be able to send money back home.
Yeah.
But that was not true. There was no job.
Oh, God.
And so a lot of times that when this is how I began my journey into understanding, man, one of the core tenets of human trafficking is labor migration. Vulnerable people looking for work, being offered something that isn't real, whether that's within their country or across the border. And when they get on that bus or in the truck or on the plane and they say goodbye to their family, they become incredibly vulnerable. And
Mm.
if it's within their own countries, they may not have the means to get home or to escape. If it's across a border, they may not speak the language.
Mm.
And so all of a sudden, this individual has been lied to, lured away from their families or communities, and they have no resources or means to escape or get home. And so
Mm.
that's what I began to understand was happening. But that was honestly the tip of the iceberg.
Mm. God. How did you feel? Because I know you would have had this open heart and a sense of service, and we're going to help these kids in Thailand, and it's all kind of feel good stuff. And then you get confronted by that. Like, what happens in your heart when you feel when that's in front of you?
I mean, I think for me, and I'm assuming I would share this sentiment with a lot of people in the world, and I think perfect for the get off the bench kind of mentality is a type of conviction,
Mm.
that this thing is taking place on my watch,
Mm.
right? And it's horrific, this thing that is happening, and seemingly there's not a lot being done about it. At least I wasn't sure what was being done about it, and it kind of haunted me.
Mm.
And sometimes, when we're moved to do things in the world, they haunt us first.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that must be true. They're the dreams
Mm.
we can't put to rest. They're the
Yeah.
ones that repeat throughout your life and your
Yeah.
day and occupy
Yeah.
your mind. And I think for my wife and I, we felt a burden
Mm.
to do something. We did not know what,
Mm.
and we didn't know how, and we didn't have a guide,
Yeah.
but there was a burden that we could not shake,
Yeah.
and it called to us.
Mm.
And so those first moments of stepping into these villages and these first moments of really, digesting the problem it's like a punch in the face. Like,
Mm,
surely that's not true. Surely that's not
mm,
happening to little kids.
mm.
Surely people aren't that evil
Yeah,
to do that to a child.
yeah.
But as it marinates within your spirit,
Mm.
what rises to the surface then is who then will I be now
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
know something like this is taking
yeah,
place?
yeah. Ooh, I get it. I get it. And it's that I love what you said about, well, I don't love any of this to be honest, but it has to be talked about. Let's just take joy in the moments that are great. That where you said I didn't know what to do, I didn't know how to do it. And I keep saying that to people. It doesn't matter. Take a step. Just take a step in the right direction because you'll learn it. You'll work it out. It'll show itself. So thank you for doing that. Why did you so then you founded the Exodus Road, and is that sort of when you're saying I didn't know what to do, I didn't know how to do it, is that what you decided that you would start a company that it was dedicated to that, or did that come much late? Like how did that?
Yeah, so when I became aware of the problem, that's kind of step one, right?
Yeah.
We have our radars out as humans. We're constantly digesting our environment
Mm,
and looking for that thing that we're going to become passionate about or want to begin or start. And I'm very entrepreneurial in that sense. But once I became aware of the problem, there were circumstances in my life that came upon my radar that
yeah.
then I paid attention to. And one of
Yeah.
those was I was invited to meet with the Thai Royal Police about human
Mm.
trafficking.
Wow.
And honestly, I did not belong in that meeting.
Mm.
I was not a cop. I don't have a
Yeah.
law enforcement background. I was working at a children's home doing humanitarian work. I'm
Mm.
basically a philanthropist and a humanitarian. I was trying to help. I was
Yeah.
trying to step towards poverty. I had no intention of fighting human trafficking. I didn't know what human trafficking was,
Mm.
but I got an invitation and I was curious. And I had felt that burden that I was
Yeah.
describing to you. It had occupied my mind. And I felt a sense of responsibility, at least for the 48 young women in my
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
And so I took that curiosity step, of
Yeah.
I don't know what this meeting's about. I don't even know why I'm invited. I don't feel like I belong,
Yeah.
but I'm going to just go and be curious. And
Yeah.
I think in those early movements of getting off the bench, of taking
Mm.
steps, I was thinking about just how wide your aperture really has to be.
Yeah.
It's not actually about solving something very specific. It's about following the whispers
Yeah.
of the spirit,
Yeah.
leaning into what calls to you, just holding space
Yeah.
to see what might grow,
Yeah.
to try to maintain a fertile type environment in your own being,
Yeah.
to say, look, I desire something very broad and generic, which is to help people. I have
Mm.
these children who seem to be potentially vulnerable to a crime,
Mm.
and I'm going to hold space in my heart to see
Mm.
how I could be involved. So, in those early movements, this was before the Exodus Road was born. It was trying to, and you have to fight not feeling
Yeah.
like you don't belong in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had a lot of people in my life tell me I didn't belong in the room.
Mm.
There's a bunch of naysayers in my
Yeah.
life reminding me regularly
Yeah.
that I had no answers to this problem. And I'm like, I know I don't have any
Yeah.
answers. I don't really bring answers. I bring me.
Mm.
I am the medium by which whatever action happens will flow through. And so there's a lot of humility, I think, when you show up to those types of rooms.
Yeah.
And I always like to remind people, my mom would say, or my dad would say, Matt, everybody, when they wake up in the morning, they put their pants on the same way, one leg at a time.
Yeah.
That you're able. You're
Yeah.
able to bring the same amount of change as anyone else.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of humility and courage to just go into those places and say, "Hey, I'm here to help. Not sure how I can,
Yeah.
but let's do this
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
be willing."
So why do you think the Thai police invited you because they knew that you're it sounds awful, but your orphanage was connected to it. They knew that a lot of these girls in orphanages came from villages that were vulnerable to this type of thing. Do you think that's why you were invited?
No,
Or do you not want to
I think
disclose that?
no, I'm
Yeah,
pretty transparent. I
yeah,
The reason I was invited is because I was working for a nonprofit organization, and they had cast the Tyrol Police had cast their net very broad, and they were asking for help from all nonprofit
yeah,
leaders,
yeah,
and they invited us to a meeting to discuss human trafficking, and I showed up with my curiosity, really not belonging, and a lot of the nonprofits in that room, they had aftercare shelters, or they had organizations focused on human trafficking specifically. And that's why I really always say I don't feel like I belonged in that
mm,
room. But as they described their need as the Tyrol Police and what they were trying to achieve, which is, I got to hand it to them, was quite brilliant to lean on the nonprofit community,
mm,
because one of the challenges, of course, is funding and resources and manpower.
yeah,
um, there was aftercare, there was intervention, which is the identification of victims and helping them, law enforcement, recover those victims. And then there's aftercare. Oh, sorry, I've said that already. Prevention,
mm,
education, awareness. Well, I wasn't doing any of those things. And so as the police split the room by discipline, half the NGOs went to aftercare, half went to prevention, and there was like me and two other NGOs interested in intervention. And I wasn't really interested in intervention. I just knew I didn't want to recreate the wheel. I didn't feel like I belonged. So I thought,
mm,
I'll just go to the corner of the room
yeah,
where nobody is. And
yeah,
hey, surely the worst I could do, I'm not going to get in anybody's way. And I had no idea that that meeting, which was so instrumental in my life, I would say it was a turning point in my life, would spark a passion to help those trapped in slavery in the intervention space. Not because I had the skill set, not because I had the experience, but because no one else was there in the corner.
yeah,
And Tyrol police were asking for assistance. And I said, look, I'll do what I can. And
mm,
from there, we started a working group. I began to do research for a year on trafficking patterns in Southeast Asia and the region, border crossings, how much children were bought and sold for, where they were being bought and sold, kind of what the police were already doing, and then maybe why that wasn't working as well as they had hoped.
mm,
And so after about a year, there was a eureka moment. This light bulb went off in my mind, and certainly the minds of the other leaders I was working with.
mm.
And it was this very simple truth: no one's looking for victims of human trafficking. Everybody's
Wow.
talking about human trafficking. I think the general public expect law enforcement to be looking for them, but global policing is typically reactive. It's not
Yeah,
as proactive as we imagine.
yeah.
And so there are 50 million modern day slaves today,
50
somewhere.
million. 50
50
million.
million.
Oh, holy shit. Wow.
That is a lot of people. And
Wow.
when you think about the volume of people that is,
Yeah.
they're in our communities, they're right underneath our noses, but no one's really looking for them. And that's what
Mm,
leads to
mm,
these awareness campaigns in the Atlanta airport, where you have labor trafficking taking place, sex trafficking taking place right underneath our noses. And how would we know?
yeah. Yeah.
How would we know that this individual on a street corner, is
Mm,
not there by their own choice, that
yeah.
there's mechanisms behind their presence on that street corner
Mm,
that are force, fraud, and coercion.
yeah.
You wouldn't know by just looking at them.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got involved, was through research, supporting, kind of responding to an opportunity I was curious about. And from that, I was invited to go undercover and was deputized into the Thai Royal Police as an investigator,
Wow.
which is something I wasn't looking to do. Uh,
No.
but
I
when
bet.
you but in Thailand, I'm a farang in Thai. It's like foreigner. And the Thai police said, Matt, we're not, without a warrant, we can't gain access to these establishments that sell
Mm,
sexual services, but
mm,
you look like a customer.
yeah.
And if you would just go and confirm if children are for sale or not and report back to us, then we'll have the ability to get the warrant to go make the rescue operation take place and the
Yeah.
arrest. Well, that was a terrifying proposition for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Karen, I'm a gentle soul. I tear up at Hallmark commercials,
Yeah.
and I know you have a soft spot for animals.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
animals, you know.
Yeah.
And so the concept of going into a brothel or a beer garden or an establishment that was seedy
Yeah.
was never in my dream. You
Yeah.
know, I would never, ever in a million years guess that I could do that or be good at that. But what was on the other side of
Yeah.
that proposition
Yeah.
was a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was that truth. Remember when I began talking today, I realized that the world had changed for children.
Yeah.
They're more vulnerable than they've ever been, especially with the advent of technology and social
Yeah.
media. The access that perpetrators and criminals have to children
Mm.
is more than any other time in the history of the world.
Yeah.
Criminals, it used to be when you and I were kids,
Yeah.
the bad guys were in the white van. You
Yep.
know, they'd pull up and
Yep.
we were all taught as kids, hey, don't
Yep.
get in the van.
Don't talk to strangers. Yep.
But
Yep.
but for our kids today who are online,
Yep.
there is no white van
Yep.
anymore. The
Yep.
the whole social media is a type of white van. There's
Mm.
very little governance, there very little protections.
Yep.
And those of us who are parents, and I have three teenagers, we weren't born in the social media era. We were born,
Yep.
before
Yep.
all of this. Our
Yep.
kids, this is how they relate to the world, is
Mm.
through social media and their digital devices. And so there is a huge gap in
Mm.
learning for us as adults whose job it is to protect our kids.
Yep.
And our kids are out there kind of in no man's land, super vulnerable to whoever pretends to be
Yep.
their friend. And they don't have the life experience to know they shouldn't just trust what people
Yep.
say online or on TikTok or Facebook.
Yep.
So these realities are very serious. And my journey in the undercover world, rescuing children with the Thai Royal Police and then expanding the nonprofit that I began out of this experience into India, Colombia, Brazil, United
Wow.
States,
Yeah. Yep.
and hiring global staff to go undercover and work with police has led to the recovery of 6,000 children.
Wow. Wow, that's huge. And I know that's not big compared to 50 million, but that is
Now,
6,000 people whose lives have changed. It reminds me of the starfish, that starfish story. Do the kid
yes.
walking on the beach throwing them in and everyone's saying, that doesn't make any difference. Well, it does to this one. And that 6,000 kids who can say, well, it matters to me. That's
And
huge.
we've arrested around 2,000 traffickers and perpetrators. And
Wow.
in the life cycle of a criminal perpetrator in human trafficking, they'll traffic up to 10 victims. So every arrest has
Mm.
this latency
Yep.
impact.
Yep.
So that 6,000 turns into 60,000, and
Yep.
who would not otherwise maybe be trafficked, who won't be trafficked
Yep.
now. But
Yeah.
this
Wow.
ripple effect that we have in our communities of action, um, back to that aperture,
Mm.
early on when I began to go undercover and start submitting field reports to law enforcement with covert video of a child being sold to me for a certain amount of money. She was the priority, or he was the priority. This child who was being sold to me. And the truth is, um, sometimes things wouldn't go right, and
Mm.
there might be a corrupt element within law enforcement,
Oh,
or
God.
the trafficker would
Yeah.
get cold feet and that child would disappear. And so there were so many moments when that goal of impacting that child's life was lost to me,
Oh,
and I never
God.
saw that child again. And kind of back to those initial thoughts of what is a win? What does
Mm.
success look like?
Mm.
Well, it's certainly, rescuing a child and arresting a perpetrator, that is a type of success.
Mm.
But if you open that aperture a little bit broader than that, there's this ripple effect of law enforcement, coaching, training,
Yeah.
equipping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Community awareness, there's advocacy. If you open that
Yeah.
aperture just a little bit more in the
Yeah.
news articles that come out every time a
Mm.
victim is recovered, and then you go a little bit further out and you all of a
Yeah.
sudden you recognize the impact
Mm.
is so much larger
Yeah.
than the one.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
one is why we do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But the impact is so much larger. And I think of the butterfly effect
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes
I
that,
agree.
showing up with curiosity and a desire to help, that large aperture, it has
Mm.
great impact
It
on my
does.
life, on your life, on the
Yep.
communities we
Yep.
serve. Yes, the goal is freedom.
Mm.
Can I just influence and advocate for action to rescue this child that no one's looking for? I found
Mm.
her.
Yeah.
We
Yep.
found her. Let's go get her. Oh, turns out there's a lot of obstacles to even going and recovering a
Yep.
victim.
Yep.
But the the goal isn't always to hit a home run, it's to get up to the plate
Yep.
and then hit the ball as best you can. The
Yep.
outcomes,
Yep.
you cannot always control those.
Yep. Well, there's about 1,000 great metaphors in there, Matt. That was, but
All right,
it's
sorry.
no, it's fantastic. It was when you going back when you said, about focusing on intervention. I just love your work, like and the fact that you've expanded it to so many countries, so many people you've saved. I mean, it's just wonderful. You've got a digital or a technological aspect to this. Did that were you always in the technical side of things, always a technical whiz, or when you sat in that meeting and became an interventionalist, is that when you and started doing all the research, is that when you said, I have to grow my technical skills and take and sort of have a little niche pocket in that, or what role does the digital stuff play, and why do you focus on that?
I'm so glad you brought this up. I mean, in my journey, I feel like I just stumble into things more than target
Yeah.
them. I was introduced to answer your question, no, I did not grow up the digital guy.
Yeah.
I played Nintendo as a kid. I'm one of the Nintendo kids from the 80s. And I've always been somewhat proficient with computers. But what we're talking about right now is called digital forensics.
Yeah.
And I knew nothing about that. When I started to work with the Thai Police, I was an undercover investigator. We call that human intelligence,
Yeah.
right? Human on human. I'm going to go befriend a trafficker,
Yeah.
get their name and where they operate, who they're selling, and I'm going to give that evidence to police for action. That is very effective, and we rescued lots of kids that way, and adults as well. We've rescued. But I was introduced to a digital forensics company that I now work for called Cellebrite.
Yeah.
I'm their global brand ambassador,
Yeah.
and I'll get to why I work for them. And they have a tool they did back then called Universal Forensics Extraction Device, UFED for short. And I didn't know anything about it, but it was donated to me by a former Army Ranger here who fought terrorism. And he said,
Wow.
Matt, I think these tools might help you. This
Mm.
leveraging of technology may help you rescue kids. So I was all interested about it.
Mm.
And he donated some of these tools to me. I called Cellebrite up right away and I'm like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Tell me more about your tools. I have some here donated. And Cellebrite was so kind. And they said, Matt, we love your mission. We love what you're doing. We want to help. And so they gave me some licenses to partner with law enforcement with. And what it is it takes a cell phone
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
and it extracts the data off of it and it
Mm.
rapidly analyzes that data.
Yeah.
Well, traffickers use cell phones to run their criminal
Yeah.
enterprises.
Yeah.
And all of their victims, most of them have cell phones too.
Yeah.
And so by having this ability to extract data off of that device and rapidly figure out who the trafficker is texting, how often, and even the geo footprint movement, because your phone tracks your location
Yeah.
of where these traffickers live, where the victims are forced to
Yeah.
live. This kind of evidence is so powerful,
Mm.
um, and it's cheaper to attain than human intelligence. It would
Yeah.
take a long
Yeah.
time undercover to learn all of that about a criminal syndicate. And it's typically on the cell phone devices or computers of perpetrators. And Cellebrite specializes in helping law enforcement analyze that data. So I was thrilled.
Mm.
I was curious, again, back to curiosity.
Yeah.
And I made a donation of these tools to the Thai Royal Police. Karen, you're never going to believe this. In 2015, so this was early days,
Yeah.
a few years after I'd started, I got a call from the Thai Royal Police. They said, Matt, we stopped a vehicle that has 90 trafficked humans in the back of it as a truck.
Oh, wow.
And they're Rohingyas and they're being trafficked from Myanmar to Malaysia, but they weren't they forced them into jungle holding camps in Thailand and were selling these people.
Mm.
Well, the police didn't know that. They just knew there's 90 people in this truck and there's 6 cell phones in the cab of the car. We heard you have Cellebrite capabilities. Can you help us?
Mm.
And so the Exodus Road, my nonprofit, we paid 2 analysts to use these tools to
Mm.
extract the data off of those phones and analyze them rapidly. Karen, we uncovered the largest human trafficking syndicate in Thailand's modern history in
Wow.
2015. We
Wow.
recovered 400 Rohingya people who were being held in the jungle, ransomed off to the fishing boats, and forced into slavery, labor trafficking. They were being tortured, unfortunately, murdered. We uncovered 3 mass graves where they were executing them if they couldn't
Oh,
sell them.
oh my
And we
God.
arrested 50 corrupt government officials
Wow.
with one of Cellebrite's tools.
Wow.
So this happened for me in
Wow.
2015, and it just kind of was like,
Mm.
whoa, this was so much cheaper,
Mm.
so much faster than anything I could ever dream
Mm.
of doing as an undercover human
Mm.
intelligence officer. So I I became this kind of believer that we have to be leveraging technology to help kids.
Mm.
We have
Mm.
got to figure out ways to empower and equip law enforcement to train them
Yeah.
uh, to leverage these tools. And what I love about it is it exposes the truth.
Mm.
Technology is typically unbiased. It's
Yeah.
not trying
Yeah.
to have an agenda. It's just
Yeah.
facts.
Yeah.
And so we started to deploy this capability all around the world. And it has led to thousands of victims being recovered, leveraging technology in
Wow.
this way.
Wow. Are you still working? So, like, are you still doing this work now, or I know you're in Colorado and you're not no longer in
Yes,
Thailand. Do you? Are you
right.
so now you're basically coordinating all of this work? Is that what's happening now, rather than doing it
Yeah.
yourself?
So I think this is kind of the beautiful part of those dreams that come true when you do get off the bench
Mm.
is I was able to start and establish a nonprofit organization, the Exodus Road, with my
Mm.
wife, and we began to hire national teams. So I have a Thai team, an Indian team, a Colombian team, an American team. And we began to train all that we learned. We've written manuals, a 120-page manual now on how to conduct human intelligence operations to identify victims of trafficking. And now, of course, we're training and teaching on how to leverage Cellebrite solutions and digital forensics globally
Mm.
with this concept of, you know, I have helped plant offices in 6 countries.
Mm.
I'm operating in 10 countries, but I have over 100, around 100 staff who are driving the nonprofit forward. I reached out to Cellebrite and a couple years ago and I said, I believe digital forensics and Cellebrite solutions are imperative to
Mm.
fighting global human trafficking. Can I be your ambassador? Basically.
Yeah.
Uh, and I was doing this already when
Yeah.
I was CEO of the Exodus Road for 10 years. Then I transitioned into a chief investigations officer. And then the last few years, I've been an advisor and board member, and I still am involved.
Yeah.
What I am doing now is meeting with governments
Yeah.
and trying to tackle some of the world's largest human trafficking cases, the
Yeah.
most complex. And I'm doing that by leveraging my 14 years undercover experience with digital forensics. And I've got to tell you, Karen, I'm probably more hopeful and excited about what I'm seeing take place than I have been since I began.
Wow. I just want to pause for 1 second. I just for people to get their heads around this. It, for a start, you just said, "Oh, my heart." I just have a soft spot for looking after kids. A philanthropist, humanitarian. I'll just go to Thailand, look after some kids. Won't that be sweet? And then, then you get to it, suddenly it's kind of like, oh shit, that's not good. And like, here's an invitation. I have no idea. Well, I'll just sit in this corner, and the next thing, like, this is how you put that paver down in front of you and step on it, and the next one just appears and the next one appears. So just this whole process, if you had have planned, if you'd have said, I want to be the world's leader in undercover, undercover human trafficking, but whatever, you wouldn't have known how to get there and you would not have started. Like, it would have just been too big a leap. But to go, I'm just going to follow my heart. I'm going to follow my curiosity. I'm just going to follow what feels right. You've sort of, this whole road has just come to this massive sort of, and you're not finished yet, but this massive scale of saving lives and changing the world and changing the footprint, of this digital nastiness. Like that? I wish people could see. I really wanted to pause and sort of emphasize that, because so many people want to get it right in the first place and want to know all the answers in the first place and want to have the perfect plan laid out before they take action. But you're a perfect example of, please don't do that. Please just start. Just start.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I'm a believer that there are no perfect plans. There are no answers you come to in the beginning. You come to
Yep.
them after a lot of failure and attempts and
Yep.
learning. And
Yep.
you know, in the end, this story that I'm telling about the Exodus Road, and then my story of becoming a
Yep.
global international investigator, now
Yep.
working with one of the world's largest digital forensics
Yep.
firms in the, like that. None of that. If you were to tell me that in the beginning,
Yep.
I probably wouldn't have believed you, and I probably would have said that's not for me.
Yep. Yep.
I think that's the thing that's so fascinating about overcoming those fears that keep us on the bench.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, you have to take risks.
Mm.
And a lot of those early risks are ego. You don't want to look like an idiot.
Yep.
Um, but look, even if you had answers that came from someone else, those answers were hard won in a different time.
Yep.
There's
Yep.
a lot of fascinating and important leadership books out there in the world, but they were written years ago,
Mm.
in a different time, and
Yep.
they came to those answers perhaps not in the digital age, or perhaps
Yep.
under different circumstances. And it doesn't mean the principles aren't good,
Yep.
but it certainly is not going to be your map.
Yep.
There is no one in the world who can give you a success map and you follow that exactly. There is no
Well,
such map.
yeah, there is Captain Failure. Captain Failure is a great. He's my favorite, Captain Failure. Yeah, I 100%. You spoke about leadership then, and I'm really curious. I do a lot of leadership and I facilitate leadership, but it's at the moment. And I just talking to my partner about this morning. I think the energy of the world, we've become
Mm,
so. It's almost like the if you take the united energy of humanity, it's almost underpinned by a lack of hope. And people, it's become
mm,
toxic and it's become quite heavy, and even the good people are struggling because they're caught up in the entire energy of it. How do you? So you're leading all these teams, but you've got this heaviness in energy and you've got this toxic humanity at the moment, this toxic energy around humanity. And it's so chaotic, and we never know what's coming from left of field, at the minute. Like, and I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. It's just fact. It's very sort of
right.
unpredictable at the minute. How do you lead your teams and keep them focused and keep them hopeful and keep them optimistic and keep them, believing they can just be the good guy in such a shitty world? How do you do that?
I mean, what an important question and a complicated answer, I think, in
Mm,
some regards. I'll start by saying remaining flexible is so critical.
yeah.
Um, a lot of us as leaders, we like control and we like the perception of control.
Mm.
But the truth is this, we're not in that much control.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the, for me in the nonprofit world, especially when I was CEO, it was really difficult to predict revenue. This is probably not uncommon for any business.
Yep.
It is oftentimes difficult, and the things that really drove that challenge were things out of my control. Politics was a big one.
Mm.
Tax law was another one. The motivations of donors. There's some kind of mechanics in there that you can somewhat influence very, very
Mm.
well, like marketing, grant writing,
Yeah.
those types of things. But in general, to try to predict, hey, are we going to grow 10%, 20%? And we did not start with cash. We started with zero in
Mm.
the bank, had to go run it,
Yep.
raise it, and spend it to impact children.
Yep.
And so we had to start from zero every year from a budget perspective. So leading your team through this exercise, when all the staff you hire and lead, they want to go hire staff, they want to grow their programs, and
Mm.
you're constantly trying to inspire them to dream big
Yep.
for freedom
Yep.
and also the realities of a limited budget
Yep.
with circumstances you that aren't in your control.
Yep.
And they're really looking to you as a leader to explain that well,
Yep.
to encourage them, to keep them full of hope. And in the
Mm.
nonprofit sector, it's very, very challenging to do this.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I'm great at it or perfect at it. I could say
Mm.
I've tried really, really hard, and so
Yep.
much of it is trying to be transparent and honest
Yep.
about the things that aren't in your control.
Yep.
Work really hard to try to achieve your goals and for to be a leader in that. Work the longest hours, take the first pay cut,
Mm.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Lean into innovation. And I think the Exodus Road, one of the reasons it's been so successful is we were so willing to throw things against the wall and learn.
Yep.
And so we have expanded from intervention focus for the first 5 years to prevention and aftercare as well. And so we have
Mm.
this really holistic programming. Why do we have that? Well, because there's more grant funding for those other things.
Yep.
And they
Yeah.
they actually coalesce very,
Yep.
very nicely. But we couldn't do that on day one. We didn't have enough staff.
Yep. Yeah.
And so being focused is really important. Remaining centered is probably my last
Mm.
piece of advice, that the world is chaotic.
Yep. Yeah.
The world's economy is chaotic.
Yep.
Crime is chaotic.
Yep.
The way law enforcement behave is chaotic. And you can really lose your way
Yep.
as a leader.
Yeah.
It can pretty easily become about your ego or your brand or your
Mm.
book.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you wake up someday and it's not really about the mission anymore. It's about
Mm.
fame or
Yeah. Yeah.
or your definition of financial success.
Yeah.
And Laura and I have, I think, had really good people in our life
Mm.
who've kind of held us to task.
Yeah.
In this particular line of work, it's not that difficult because I think about the victims of trafficking every day, and I
Mm.
have images in my mind and trauma
Mm.
that I have endured on behalf of children. And so for us, it's never really been about us. Um, and so those flexibilities and innovations and remaining centered to mission have helped us lead through chaotic times and
Yeah.
keep our teams inspired
Mm.
um, in ways that I think are really important.
Mm. Well, all of that makes sense, and thank you for your answer. You've hit on something else that's led me to the next thing, though. You're saying, that we've seen trauma, we've seen, well, look, let's just face it, you've seen a shit show, and you've seen stuff, as you said earlier, we couldn't save some. Yeah, I saw their faces. I couldn't say, they were gone the next day. And you talked
Hmm.
about being haunted. Like there's so many Yes, you're doing great things. Yes, you can keep your team focused. Yes, you can keep you focused and centered. And that those images in your mind, they don't go away. Despite your great work. How do you take care of your mental health? Because you go to bed at night, and I know you must, and I because you're a good human who's doing good things and trying to be. You talk about being a humanitarian. I know that those you shut your eyes and those faces appear. And the frustration that will rise, into rage at times. I just couldn't. Damn it, that sort of stuff. How do you take care of yourself? Because that's tough.
I mean, I think it's probably one of the most important questions of my life as I'm approaching 50,
Mm,
and I have really sacrificed a lot personally
yeah,
to impact the world, and it's left its mark on me. And I think
yeah,
this is an important, honest conversation I love having because I see a lot of leaders, a lot of law enforcement struggle with trauma.
mm,
For me, how do I deal with it? Well, first off, I had to come to the realization that no one is coming for me.
yeah, yeah,
And one of my favorite counselors, Mel Robbins, she talks about this, that no one's coming. And I have this individual responsibility for my wellness.
yeah,
For years in the undercover world, I would kind of leave my family, my wife, I'd go undercover somewhere in the world for 2 weeks at a time, 20 days at a time. I'd see horrible things. And I would kind of like come home with this image in my mind that I'm going to open the front door and my wife's going to have dinner prepared for me, and I'm
yeah,
the hero,
yeah,
this king's ransom,
yeah,
like you did this really hard thing, Matt, and we're all here to celebrate your courage. The facts are these, Karen. I came home to a flood in the basement, all the house needs that went undone.
yeah,
My wife is like, I'm so glad you're back. Now I need a break,
yeah,
and for me in the investigator world, I called that reentry,
yeah,
and it became this incredibly difficult thing to go undercover, see these horrible abuses, and I've seen murder, I've seen all kinds of horrible, horrible things. To come home and really want somebody to hold me,
yeah,
like
yeah,
tell me it's going to be okay.
yeah,
But I open the door and there's just a family who really needs their dad and
yeah,
their husband,
yeah,
and they needed me to be really strong and present, but I was trapped in trauma.
mm,
And so I had to realize that my wife wasn't going to fix
mm,
my soul.
yeah,
My kids weren't going to fix the things that I'd seen or take them away. There was no, I think I had to understand it was my responsibility to seek
mm,
out help, to gain the skills to deal with my wellness.
mm,
And that is a huge part. Number two, I did seek out professional trauma counseling, and there's a stigma kind of globally still around counseling.
mm,
But guys, our human spirit is probably one of the most complicated things,
mm,
and some of us have kind of natural skills and self-awareness. Some of us are really bad at that. Guys
mm,
typically are not great at it. I feel like I'm typically pretty naturally good at it, but to have a professional help you piece together
mm,
things that have shaped your worldview, like your childhood traumas. So much of my counseling I thought would be about the horrible things I've seen. Turns out it was about my childhood, right? You kind of hear
yeah,
that public,
yeah,
well, it's about your childhood wounds,
yeah,
but it's kind of true because as a kid, we were taught what was safe
yeah, yeah,
and what wasn't. And our entire world is shaped with those programmed lenses of what is safe and what is not safe. And a lot of what keeps us on the bench is what we
yeah,
interpret to be unsafe,
yeah,
which is the only way actually
yeah,
forward.
yeah,
And so you have to own this fact that
mm,
your mental wellness is your responsibility. And without it, without mental wellness, there is no longevity.
yeah,
There is no sustainability. You will not be successful
yeah,
if you are not well. And all kinds of things in the world can tip you into unwellness,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Financial burden,
Yeah.
marital issues, family issues. There's all kinds, a missed sales projection,
Yeah.
the opinions of the world.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many things that can get you off
Yeah.
kilter, but
Yeah.
I think it's so critical that, and I would encourage all listeners, no matter what industry you're in, gain those skills. They will serve you well. And a
Yeah.
few symptoms I would say of my trauma, and I'll share this with you.
Yeah.
Symptoms that worried me. I was angry
Yeah.
for no reason. I am not an angry guy. I'm pretty chill.
Mm.
But I found myself randomly angry at my kids or my wife, and I would lash out. I would say things that were not. Even
Mm.
as I heard myself say them, I'm like, what is it?
Mm.
Was pain
Yeah.
and trauma creeping up,
Yeah.
and I didn't have the skills to know that that's what was happening. And
Mm.
so that leads to all kinds of issues in your relationships.
Yeah.
And I decided I love my wife and my kids enough
Mm.
to humble myself and seek help.
Yeah.
And even as a CEO, it leaked into my everyday
Mm.
management of staff.
Yeah.
I was just harsher,
Yeah.
than I really want to be. Somebody would have an idea and I'd shoot it down, and
Yeah.
like they were
Yeah.
idiots, and
Yeah.
it wasn't a bad idea. My trauma had these symptoms in my leadership.
Mm.
And so I'm being humble and vulnerable with you guys today too. I would say alcohol has such an appeal
Yeah.
because for a moment you're
Mm.
not hurting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When you drink. And for a moment you have this sense of wellness. It's not true though.
Yeah.
And so I think there are substance abuses that exist because of trauma. People reach for any
Yeah.
addiction. It could be all
Yeah.
kinds of things that create that dopamine spike or a sense of
Mm.
wellness. But the
Mm.
real muscle is not reaching for those things.
Yeah.
It's dealing with your soul. I used to
Mm.
say that my emotions are a fragile ecosystem.
Yeah. That's
And
true. It's true.
but I have built some resilience. I have practiced emotional resilience.
Mm.
I'm an empath. I feel things
Yeah.
very deeply, and so I have a lot of grace for that. But I also care too much about
Mm.
things,
Mm.
and I'm learning the art of
Yeah.
focusing on what I should care about and really releasing the things
Mm.
that really do not impact my value, my wellness. And that exercise will probably continue the rest
Yeah.
of my life,
Yeah.
but I think it's really critical to everyone's success.
Mm. I was just going to say that it's not do one thing and fix it forever. It's a living. We are just we're living human beings, and our life and our transformations are living. We can never. What's the point if we get perfect? We might as well drop dead, really, because we've got nothing else to learn. We might as well,
That's right.
But it's I just think we should be. Well, we should be. I sound like a lecturer, but we should be, trying to always improve ourselves and always feel better, because the better we feel, the better we can support others around us, and the better we can make a difference to the world. But I just want you in there. You talked about coming home to your kids, and I just can't help. I can't help but imagine what I would do. Did you come home and get hyper vigilant? Like, did you start to now see your kids and your family as possessions or objects, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, that you had to protect, and that you were probably unreasonable to some degree to say, I'm going to protect you at all costs, no matter what. Do you know what I mean? Because how could you not?
Yeah.
How could you not do that?
Yeah. I think that, certainly I had a sense of paranoia that I had to
Mm.
overcome. And I think a lot of though I have complex PTSD. And so the situations that I was in undercover created a sense of paranoia,
Mm.
elevated heart rate. Even I
Yeah.
couldn't. I was dysregulated. I could never seem to calm down
Mm,
fully the way most people should be. And so it does lend itself towards like hypervigilance on child
mm,
protection. My own kids, I
yeah,
think I have 8 security cameras,
yeah,
way too many around my property.
yeah,
You know, these things, back to some of these original thoughts we shared today, perceived control. I was lunging for control,
yeah, yeah,
which is an illusion.
yeah,
There's always this serious conversation with yourself about acceptance
mm,
and about loving yourself and your family without this irrational desire for control
mm,
that can really ruin relationships, right? So
yeah,
yes, I think I did probably, like, if you were to ask my kids, what they would say is, yeah, dad tracks me all the time, you know, which is
yeah,
true.
yeah,
I track my kids all the
yeah,
time, and
yeah,
I know where they're at. I know where
yeah,
they're going. I know when they're going to be home. And if they're
yeah,
5 or 10 minutes late, I'm asking them why.
yeah, yeah,
I don't know that that's super weird for a
mm,
parent to do, but certainly I've informed my kids about the dangers of the world.
yeah,
And I think that's one of the things I would encourage all listeners to educate themselves on. Back to this
mm,
concept that these are not pleasant conversations,
yeah,
but we do have a responsibility
yep,
to know
yep,
and understand the world by which our kids
yep,
are living and breathing and interacting and giving. We have to learn it so that therefore we can give our kids
yep,
the skills to be safe. That's
yep,
our job as
yep,
adults,
yep,
is to help keep the kids in our community safe from those who would do them harm.
yep,
We are the ones who will stand between a perpetrator and a child.
yep,
We would never expect the child to be
mm,
that role would be on the child.
yep,
So we have to educate, we have to stand up protections. Um, and I think I've done that. I don't think I've damaged my kids with overreach. Uh, I'm sure in the future they'll tell me the truth, but I've been mindful of. I think mindfulness in my relationships has become so central to
yeah,
my everyday wellness. Is how do I be a good father and husband,
mm,
business owner and business partner? How do I do this in a way that's in flow,
yeah,
that's not forced, that's
yeah,
not out of balance? And my wife is really good at telling me when I'm out of balance. you know so,
yeah,
and my kids too,
yeah,
dad,
yeah,
you need to put a pin in that. You're a little bit charged, and but it takes a skill to be able to receive that too,
yeah, it
and when you're
does.
triggered from trauma, you don't hear things properly,
Yeah,
and you need to take a time out, and you need to go do some box
yeah,
breathing, go to the gym
yeah,
and exercise,
yeah,
so that you can regulate your system, so that you can be
yeah,
go from that back part of your brain to
yeah,
the limbic brain,
yeah,
the logic center. Um, I've done a lot of research and just learning that our childhood programming, which tells us what we
yeah,
should be afraid of,
yeah,
and then how we behave when we feel threatened,
yeah,
those are real problems.
yeah, yep,
Um, we have got to remain in the logic center of our brain, our frontal lobe,
yeah,
but instinctually, when we feel threatened,
we don't.
our
Yeah,
thinking
that's
moves
right.
to the rear part of your
Yeah,
brain, which is fight or flight.
yeah,
Well, it's hard to be a good dad.
yeah,
It's hard to be a good husband when you're in the back part of your brain. And
mm,
so when you learn that and you respect your family and those in your life to tell you, hey, you're not you're not yourself.
yeah,
Take a minute.
yeah,
Give me a hug. Let's take a deep breath. That's been so powerful in my life. And everybody doesn't have that. But
mm,
you can develop skills
yeah,
to work through trauma. I can't talk enough about it. I mean, it's been such a huge cornerstone of my adult development, is learning how to deal with the horrible things I've seen while
mm,
undercover.
mm, yeah. I think, there's never an excuse, for violent behavior or any of that sort of stuff. But I tell you, I think you've got more reason than most to be getting grumpy occasionally. You know, there's a couple of things I want to sort of finish off with asking you a question, but before I do, I want to say we've got 8 cameras here. I don't think it's unreasonable at all. We track our daughter, and she knows it. However, but my partner and our daughter and me, we're all on one thing together, a tracking device together, and our rule has been we don't ask, we don't make judgments about where anybody is, and we don't none of that. But if you're ever in trouble, by God, we know where you are. Do you know that type? Our
Hmm.
son, nah, he's too good for that. He don't need us. He can take care of himself. Anyway, and don't you dare put me on that system. But so I agree with you. To finish up, like, what's what can the average person, like, you've seen it from underneath, you've seen every angle of this nasty, and I just fucking awful. Like, I just can't stand that there are people out there who think that they have got the God-given right to harm somebody else for their own advantage. I said this is my anger side, just rages with that kind of shit, and I've got to learn to do a bit better. But you know, what can the average person do who's not really not really attuned, to noticing what might be wrong, or not feeling like they've got skills to intervene, or not feeling like it's their place, or is it some telltale signs, or is there something that we could just do better as average human beings to make this issue better?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think there's two specific things I would recommend. Number one, is this learning that needs to happen and awareness
Mm.
in your own life. I don't live in your neighborhoods,
Yeah.
so I don't know exactly right now what's happening in your neighborhood. But I think, learning the signs of human trafficking and learning how to keep the loved ones in your life safe,
Mm.
especially digital safety, the online environment, is really your responsibility.
Mm.
The Exodus Road, my nonprofit, we launched an awareness and education tool called influenced.org.
Yep.
And it's a training course on how to keep you and your loved ones safe online.
Yep.
And it goes through the signs of online perpetration, what to do if, a lot of kids are getting caught up in something called sextortion, where they're basically framed by a trafficker or perpetrator, pretending to be someone else. They end up getting a photo of the child who's nude, and then they extort money out of them or
Yep. I've
extort
heard.
those
Yeah.
children for additional photos.
Yeah.
So that is something that is kind of tangent to trafficking. It may not be trafficking, but it's certainly illegal. It could be tangent to child sexual abuse material, where those images are then sold to trafficking rings or pedophile groups. So it's really quite nasty, that one.
Mm.
So we have a hub of learning called influenced.org, where anybody anywhere in the world can
Yep.
go. You can take these courses, and it just gives you that breadth of education. And it's
Mm.
not that long of a course. It's
Yep.
it's modern. It's a great curriculum.
Yep.
That's the first thing. I think we have to equip ourselves. The second thing that I would recommend is, do not be afraid to call law enforcement.
Yep.
They are paid to keep our communities safe. If you see something that feels off,
Yep.
call the police.
Yep.
I think, a lot of, I travel and I speak all over the world, and a lot of countries have a mentality that, hey, we're gonna mind our own business.
Mm.
You
Yep.
know, like,
Yep.
hey, my neighbor was screaming, but I'm not gonna.
Yep. Yep.
I'm gonna invite all of our listeners
Mm.
today to change our thinking.
Yep.
That there are people in the world right now, 50 million modern day slaves, waiting for someone to find them.
Yep.
No one's looking for them. It
Oh.
is our responsibility, at minimum, that if
Mm.
we in our spirit think, oh, something's not right, the least you could do is make a report.
Yep.
Those two things. That's what I would recommend.
Wow. Well, I will put a link in the show notes for influenced.org, and hopefully people go and have a look. And Matt, thank you so
Yeah.
very much for joining us. Where can people find you? Where's the best place to follow your work and find you?
Certainly the exodusroad.com. That's the nonprofit that I helped found with my wife. You can find me there. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm traveling the world right now, giving presentations very similar to this podcast. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you guys if
Yep.
you have questions or need support in any way. I'm
Thank
happy to
you.
help.
Thank you so much. Oh, Matt, I have loved this. I haven't loved it. Like it's a shitful topic, but I've loved the conversation, and you've really opened up some stuff that, I'm sure people were not aware of. And I just hope by bringing this topic out and just being just one more platform for it, it might save somebody's life. So, I just appreciate the work you do so, so deeply. And thank you for being one of the good ones. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Karen. It's a privilege. I hope I've encouraged people to get off the
Me too.
bench.
Me too. But specifically in this topic, for this topic.
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
all right. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you. See ya.
Thank you.
Ta-da.